Thanks for joining us on WTHR Plus for our special on the Delphi murders case. We want to get you caught up with what you need to know before this long-awaited trial begins. We'll be breaking down the major developments, beginning with a timeline from our Dustin Grove, from when Libby German and Abby Williams went missing.
On February 13th, 2017, Libby and Abby disappeared. The next day, their bodies were found.
The hope among hundreds of searchers turned to heartbreak. Well before authorities announced that 2 bodies were found, the faces and tears of firemen, lawmen, and volunteers told the tragic outcome.
We are investigating this as a crime scene. We suspect foul play. We have not made positive identification of the 2 bodies.
The bodies were found shortly after noon outside of town along the banks of Deer Creek, about 3/4 of a mile upstream from the teenagers' last location. A Snapchat photo taken by Libby German put her and her friend Abby Williams on the abandoned Monon High Bridge early Monday afternoon. They were enjoying a day off from school. The pair never arrived at a location a relative was supposed to pick them up.
It's been a long several hours. It's played tremendously on the emotions of the community.
So if you can group up, like somebody's got a pickup truck or something.
Hundreds of volunteers joined firefighters and police from across the county. They searched and researched a 20-square-mile area, walking through creek banks, the remote woods, wide fields, and buildings. Many of the volunteers know the girls and their families.
Yeah, we do take it personally. We don't know what's happened here.
Hours before the bodies were found, we spoke with Libby's grandfather, Mike Patty.
Very, very good kids. I mean, they're sports oriented. That's their relationship together. They play a lot of sports together, volleyball, softball, baseball, whatever it is.
Investigators wanting to protect the evidence are releasing few details. The presumed murders occurred in a popular, well-used hiking area.
Should people in the community be afraid right now?
Delphi Police Chief Stephen Mullen.
I think people are smart enough in our community to draw their own conclusions about what they should feel and shouldn't feel.
A day after that, on February 15th, police revealed images of the suspected killer.
Here's the image police want the public to see. Not calling him a person of interest, but someone police want to talk to because he was on the same trail as the murdered teenagers at about the same time.
Look like anybody that you've seen in the area living close to the trail?
No.
Same question police have been asking. We saw them up and down country roads near the historic bridge and trail the 2 13-year-olds were walking around the time they were murdered Monday afternoon.
Just wanting to know if you'd seen any strange people, you know. Maybe that's where I seen it.
Police not only want to find out who this man is and whether he was seen near the girls Monday afternoon, police also want to talk to anybody who parked in the High Bridge Trailhead parking lot between 1 and 5 p.m. Monday. It's critical they call police.
We're going to get to the bottom of this. We feel confident, and we're going to do everything we can within our resources to reach justice in this situation.
The Carroll County Sheriff, after autopsies, confirmed the identities of the 2 13-year-olds, Libby German and Abby Williams. But to protect the investigation, police not yet releasing the cause of death or whether the girls died in the same way.
Did he recover either of their cell phones at the scene?
We cannot comment on that right now.
At least one of the victims had a cell phone and posted photos to social media before she died. It's unclear if this picture was taken by the girls.
There went I don't know.
A couple more police officers going by?
They've been pretty much blocking the road all day and keep people out of there.
February 22nd, they release a recording of the alleged killer's voice saying, "Down the hill." In July of 2017, police released a sketch of the alleged killer.
It's basically just a clear picture of his face compared to what you saw down below. We've got the information out there, the pictures out there. Now we got this composite that we feel that is the same. We feel it is the same person, and we just want to make sure that people realize that that picture is this person. We're hoping, and that they can get that picture and take that picture and get us some information on a possible suspect.
Then, nearly 2 years later, in April of 2019, state police released an updated sketch and additional audio. On October 26, 2022, Richard Allen was arrested and on the 28th charged. Police announced Allen's arrest in Libby and Abby's murders 3 days later.
I'd like to speak directly to Anna, Mike, Becky, Kelsey, your extended families, along with the entire Delphi community that certainly has grown and now includes our nation and even many countries around the world. I am proud to report to you that today, actually last Friday, was the day, and an arrest has been made.
November 3rd, Richard Allen is transferred to the Westville Correctional Facility, a state prison in northwest Indiana. On November 29th, a redacted probable cause is released.
The probable cause affidavit says Abby and Libby were found dead in the woods less than a quarter mile from the Monon High Bridge, and there was a .40 caliber unspent round found between the victims' bodies, less than 2 feet away from Libby German. Investigators first spoke to Richard Allen back in 2017, and at that time, Allen told investigators he was on the trails by the Monon High Bridge between 1:30 and 3:30 on the day of the murders. The PC did not say why investigators spoke to him back in 2017. Then, last month on October 13th, investigators interviewed Allen again. According to the PC, Allen again said he was on the Monon High Bridge to watch the fish. He said he parked his car on the side of an old building and was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. Investigators say that matches the clothes worn by the man who Libby captured in this video on the day of the murder. Last month, Allen also told investigators he owns firearms. That same day, police executed a search warrant at his Delphi home and recovered jackets, boots, knives, and firearms, including a Sig Sauer model P226 .40 caliber pistol. He told investigators he never allowed anyone to use or borrow that firearm. Investigators sent that gun to the Indiana State Police Crime Lab for analysis, and it was determined the unspent round located within 2 feet of Libby's body had been cycled through Richard M. Allen's gun. Then, on October 26th, state police again spoke to Allen, and when asked about the unspent bullet, he did not have an explanation of why the bullet was found between the bodies. He again admitted that he was on the trail but denied knowing Abby or Libby and denied any involvement in their murders. 1 day later, Allen was charged with 2 counts of murder and has been in custody ever since.
September 20th, Allen's attorneys submitted a filing alleging the girls' deaths were part of an Odinist ritual sacrifice and accused detectives of ignoring or intentionally suppressing evidence for years.
The document filed in Carroll County Court claims the real killers are members of a pagan religion called Odinism. And defense attorneys say the crime scene was filled with symbols linked to Odinistic rituals, suggesting the teenagers were killed as part of a ritual sacrifice. The document names people who the defense claims are Odinites and should be prime suspects, some already interviewed by police. 13 News is not naming them because they were not arrested and charged, and we're also not sharing many new details of the crime scene because they're too graphic to broadcast. The defense team argues Richard Allen is not in any way connected to Odinism, something investigators downplayed when they obtained a search warrant. They also claim the sheriff intentionally concealed evidence from the judge and lied about other evidence in order to get the search warrant that eventually led to Allen's arrest. Defense attorneys now want the judge to dismiss evidence collected from Allen's home, including a gun that allegedly matched an unspent bullet police found near the teenage victims. If that evidence is suppressed, that would be a huge win for Allen.
That there would be no evidence of a handgun, and that would make it extremely difficult to tie him to the crime scene.
Shay Hughes is a deputy public defender in Tippecanoe County. He says this huge document is clearly an attempt to share Allen's defense with the public, especially after a court hearing earlier this summer revealed Allen had confessed to the murders during a jailhouse phone call. The defense claims Allen was pressured into making that false confession by prison guards who they claim are Odinites and who threatened the defendant, a direct contrast to the prosecutor's claim that Allen is a confessed murderer.
I think this is kind of their opportunity to rebut that essentially there's somebody else out there that committed these allegations.
Now that Allen's defense is out in the open, it will be up to a judge to decide whether important evidence was obtained legally and whether it can be presented to a jury.
There has been a contentious battle between the judge and Richard Allen's attorneys throughout the years leading to this trial. That actually led to the Indiana Supreme Court getting involved and issuing a ruling in January of 2024. On Thursday, the Chief Justice of Indiana's Supreme Court said the trial judge should not have kicked Richard Allen's original attorneys off the case.
There's not been these findings with regard to incompetence. There's a lot of words out there, but let him have his attorney. Get this case back. Let him have his attorneys. He wants to privately hire them.
So that means Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie are reinstated as court-appointed public defenders. Allen's civil attorney sent 13 News a reaction. Attorney Kara Wenicky says, on behalf of Richard Allen, Mark Lehman and I are very pleased with the court's order today and with how quickly the court issued a decision. I spoke with Rick's wife earlier, and she is happy and relieved that Rick's attorneys have been reinstated. Another big development on Thursday. The prosecutor filed amended charges against Richard Allen, 2 counts of felony murder and 2 counts of kidnapping, in addition to the 2 counts of murder.
New charges suggest is that Mr. Allen did not have to literally be involved in killing the victims in this case. He could have simply been involved in their kidnapping, which resulted in their death.
So I asked our legal expert if the amended charges give us any hints of what the prosecutor thinks may have happened to Abby and Libby nearly 7 years ago.
There is certainly now room to wonder whether they believe that there were other actors involved. Because essentially, again, with these charges, what they're saying is, jurors, you don't have to find that Richard Allen literally killed these girls. You just have to find that he was involved in the commission of the felony that resulted in their death.
The jurors will be from Allen County and will be selected over 3 days in Fort Wayne. Then they'll be taken to Carroll County for opening statements and the rest of the trial. The jurors' job will be to find the truth, and jurors are going to hear very different versions of what happened in Delphi.
When jurors take their seats in this Carroll County courtroom, they'll be asked to decide whether Richard Allen did, in fact, murder Abby Williams and Libby German.
I think the world will be watching.
13 News legal expert Katie Jackson-Lindsay has tried both sides of a murder case as a deputy prosecutor and as a criminal defense attorney. She says when the Carroll County prosecutor presents the state's case to the jury, it will focus on painting a picture of the crime scene.
We don't know every single piece of evidence that was collected. We don't know how significant every piece of that evidence is. Learning more about the crime scene itself and educating this jury on that is going to be really important for the prosecution.
Also important for the prosecutor, establishing for the jury that Richard Allen was actually at the scene of the crimes.
That's so important because at this juncture, Richard Allen is the only person charged with these murders. They have to be able to put Richard Allen there, I think, to have credibility with this jury.
Allen denies having anything to do with the murders, but police say he did admit to being on the walking trails near the Monon High Bridge, not far from the crime scene, on the day of the murders, and the jury will hear that.
And so the state's going to use that as a very burning piece of evidence to, first and foremost, at least put him in the area and give him opportunity. But on the other hand, that can also cut both ways, because if he truly committed these crimes, why would he admit that?
We also expect the state to tell jurors about a bullet found at the crime scene. Even though the court records suggest the girls' deaths were not caused by a firearm, investigators say forensic testing conducted on an unfired bullet found near the girls' bodies show it matches a gun that belonged to Richard Allen.
That it's a pretty critical piece of evidence for the prosecution because it's the single piece of physical evidence, as I understand it, that links Richard Allen to the scene.
Expect the defense team to challenge that evidence and the controversial science of linking an unfired bullet to a specific gun. And when the state tells the jury that Richard Allen allegedly confessed to the murders while in prison, well, his defense team will push back on that too.
As the state's presenting this evidence, we're going to watch the defense challenge every single one of these witnesses in cross-examination.
She says cross-examination is when the defense team will try to undermine the credibility of police, how they investigated the murders, and how they singled out Allen. Also worth watching, the judge and the defense have both claimed the other is incompetent. Will they be able to set aside their animosity to ensure a fair trial?
Even if it wasn't Richard Allen, someone did this. Someone has caused this horrific harm to these families. And so the idea of individual or personal tension, it just really increases the anxiety, and it makes it a harder trial for everyone.
Make no mistake, this trial will be hard, especially for Libby and Abby's families and for Richard Allen and his family.
They never gave up hope or stopped praying, telling themselves with every day that passed.
We still keep positive that today could be the day.
Today's the day.
That's the phrase the families of Libby German and Abby Williams said to themselves every day for almost 6 years, believing that one day they'd be saying it after investigators arrested a person responsible for the murders of Abby and Libby. That day finally came when police called them to say they had a person in custody.
That's why we said never stop searching anywhere, because we didn't know where he was.
Libby's grandparents, Mike and Becky Patty, spoke Monday following a news conference where Indiana State Police announced they had arrested Richard Allen, a longtime Delphi resident who worked at the local CVS, charging him with the girls' murders.
I don't know the gentleman personally at all.
Turns out, though, the Pattys did have contact with Allen, confirming that at some point since the murders, he had processed photos for them at CVS, but didn't charge them.
That is accurate.
Okay, and that he didn't charge the family when they came in to claim the photos?
That is correct.
The interaction between these grandparents and the man now accused of killing their granddaughter and her friend Abby. Confirmation about what investigators and even the families have believed at times over the years, that the killer was hiding in plain sight.
I feel very strongly that there's a very good chance that it was somebody from the area that knew this area at one time.
That's Abby's mom, Anna Williams, speaking to 13 News 4 years after the girls' murders. Williams chose not to talk after police announced the recent arrest of Allen, but she's spoken several times in the past about the loss of her only child.
My heart's still breaking.
That's Williams just 6 months after the girls' deaths. Back then, holding on to the hope that an arrest would come at any time.
I'd like to be able to have a little bit of happiness come Christmas time this year, knowing that nobody else is ever going to have to go through what we went through, and that this person isn't still out there.
But Christmas that first year came and went, with no breaks in the case. What followed were days, weeks, and then years of what should have been other milestones in Abby and Libby's lives. Learning to drive, going to the prom, graduating high school. All moments never realized.
As tough as their first day of school, everybody is feeling what we're feeling as a group.
Social media, the posts, the kids going to prom, or, the various things that kids do, and you get their license and they post pictures of it, well, we didn't get to enjoy that, and Libby didn't get to partake and have that.
Instead, every year around the time of the girls' deaths, the families held a food drive. They also built a park in Abby and Libby's memory.
I think of Libby's laugh every morning, and I imagine all of the really great things that she would be doing right now.
Libby's older sister, Kelsey, was the one who dropped the girls off at the trail that day and was the last person to see Abby and Libby alive.
That's something I live with every day.
Kelsey has spoken several times over the years about the loss of her little sister.
You have a lot of regret in that, and that is also part of the reason why I keep pushing so hard.
For Kelsey, that push included studying forensics and psychology at Purdue.
I have a mission now. That mission is to get this case solved.
But even as 5 years passed with still no answers, the families of Abby and Libby continued to push forward, getting up every day, knowing the person responsible for the murders was still out there, continuing to share the girls' stories and their journey through the grief of losing them, hoping at some point someone would call in the one tip that would help solve the case.
We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to keep doing what we're doing, but we have to. We have to keep looking for justice and finding justice, and we're just going to keep pushing forward and doing this every year that we have to.
Finally, last week, it seemed like the first step towards finding that justice for Abby and Libby had arrived. Their families had a face and a name, Richard M. Allen, to put with the nightmares that have kept them up at night for the past 5.5 years.
I don't feel like I thought I would. I've always said that I would be screaming on the rooftops, but we're not. It's sad. While there's somebody that's been arrested, our lives for 5.5 years have been in a search, and that's what we've done. And you get up and it's like, oh, we're not doing that anymore. So we're all just kind of feeling our way and figuring out what our purpose is now. What do we do next? How do we help?
The answers to those questions will likely be answered in the coming days and months.
This is another chapter in this whole story that in our lives.
A chapter that's still being written to a story that started on a cold February day when the families of Abby Williams and Libby German learned monsters aren't just the stuff of make-believe. Sometimes they might look like the person walking towards you on a bridge in the woods.
And this won't just be hard on the families, but also for the community of Delphi. And it'll be costly for Carroll County.
It's been nearly 2 years since Richard Allen was arrested and charged with the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. And as the legal battle drags on, the costs keep going up. 13 Investigates has obtained these accounting records from the Carroll County Auditor. They show Carroll County taxpayers have now spent just over $1 million on the Delphi murders case.
It's a lot.
Mike Fincher is Carroll County's emergency management director. He says Carroll County budgeted $2.1 million for the Delphi murders trial. But as the case gets bigger and the timeline gets longer, that might not be enough.
Is there a chance you're going to go over that $2.1 million?
Part of me thinks that we might. We added 15 more days to the trial, so there's 15 more days of expenses. Now we're going to have to look at where the money's going to come from.
Of the $1 million spent so far, more than half, about $581,000, is considered expenses for Richard Allen's defense. That includes $434,000 for his attorneys, $49,000 for experts, $47,000 for investigators, and nearly $38,000 for depositions and transcripts.
Is that a lot for a case like this? That is high. And this case is honestly more high profile in Indiana than most of our death penalty cases. So it doesn't shock me.
Derek Mason runs the Indiana Commission on Court-Appointed Attorneys. He says the organization will be reimbursing Carroll County for about 40% of its defense costs. That's because Carroll County is a member of the commission, which helps local communities cover the cost of big murder trials like this one.
Having that 40% reimbursement, it's almost like an insurance policy for counties.
The commission does not cover costs for the prosecutor, and so far the Carroll County Prosecutor's Office has spent $370,000 on the Delphi murders case. Most of that, about $250,000, is for additional attorneys to help the prosecutor. The next biggest expense, $72,000 for a special podium with AV equipment like this one to be used in the courtroom. Other prosecutor costs include about $20,000 for computers and computer equipment, $9,000 to pay for Richard Allen's housing at state prisons, $7,500 for expert witnesses, and $4,000 for a trial consultant to help the prosecutor plan his trial strategy.
This is all purchased this year.
Then there are costs for courthouse security.
This is new.
Yep.
Carroll County has spent $86,000 on new metal detectors, an x-ray machine, barricades, and fencing, all for this murder case.
We never had any of that. Being a rural county, we really didn't have court security until this came up.
It's surprising to the extent that the courthouse didn't already have some of those things. But again, that speaks to the venue where this horrific event has happened.
13 News legal analyst Katie Jackson-Lindsay has served as both a defense attorney and a prosecuting attorney. I asked her if the $1 million spent so far is too much.
What's at stake here, you can't put a price on that. We're talking about life and liberty, the lives of two young girls that have been lost, and the justice that is owed to their family. And we're talking about Richard Allen's liberty, his freedom. You can't quantify what's too much to ensure that there is a fair and just resolution for everyone.
Since that projection in August of 2024, the cost has gone up to more than $4 million. The judge in the case has also dealt a blow to the defense team, ruling that Richard Allen's attorneys cannot bring up a theory that the murders were part of Odinism or a ritualistic killing. The judge said the defense failed to show a strong enough connection between those things and the murders. So now this comes down to the trial and ultimately what the jurors see and hear, what they believe actually happened on that February day in 2017. They will decide whether Richard Allen is guilty or not in the deaths of Libby German and Abby Williams.